Well, Ruth Ellen Brousseau still isn't talking, not about her trip to Vegas, how she became an NDP candidate in a riding she'd never been to, and now she's not talking about why the college she claims to have a degree from says she doesn't have that degree. Our strategists now weigh in on that and much more. Amanda Alvaro is with Narrative Advocacy Media. She is in Toronto. Brian Topp, NDP strategist, joins us from Vancouver. And Jeff Norquay with Earnscliffe Strategy Group is here with me in studio. Thank you, everyone. Brian, to you first. What's up? Why is this lady not talking? And I want to throw in there, too, your leader isn't talking to us these days either. We've asked every day running for several.
Well, I don't know what the leader's schedule is, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's catching up on his sleep. It was a pretty long campaign, but he's going to be here in Vancouver tomorrow addressing 2,500 delegates at the CLC conference. So I guess you can send a crew out to chat with him then. And with regard to
and what will
this woman,
and what will he say about his newest NDP MP?
I guess we'll see, but I'll tell you what I say about her. I think it's pretty clear that she wasn't expecting to win. I don't know. I think she's been pretty honest about that. That you know, she agreed to put her name on that ballot, so folks in that riding would have someone to vote for who supported Jack Layton. Like, she clearly wasn't expecting to win, and she's getting a real education. What happens when you find yourself in federal politics? Well, let's just say this: we've heard all about it, all this stuff. We'll see what the truth of it is as the days and weeks go by. Somewhere along the line, this woman, who has been, the object of a pretty aggressive media campaign, is going to stand up in that House of Commons. She's a young woman, a single mother, and she's going to talk about the issues that young women and single mothers speak about. And then we might find that she's got something to say.
But shouldn't she have been speaking about that during the election? Jeff, I'm going to bring Jeff in here. I mean, these are this is going to be the official opposition.
Right.
This is what you're up against.
You know, I'm really beginning to feel sorry for this poor girl. An incredible number of events have happened here in a very, very short time. You know, this is a very, very rough welcome to the NHL for her. You know, until the most recent thing, I really was prepared to say, look, let's just give it a rest. The NDP has elected a huge number of new MPs. Some will turn out to be duds and inspire buyer's remorse. Some will be inspired parliamentarians. And, you know, maybe one will be the first NDP Prime Minister of Canada. We don't know. There's going to be all kinds. But, you know, this girl's having a very rough start. And I do feel sorry for her.
Now, Amanda, what kind of responsibility do you think the NDP leadership has to take for this, though? Because, you know, as Jeff points out, perhaps she just didn't know what she was getting into. Is there not is not someone at the wheel of the NDP party to say, look, let's make sure we put up candidates who know what they're in for?
Yeah, well, you know, it sounds like there isn't much responsibility being taken across the board. I mean, to answer with something like the leader's been getting his beauty rest for the last 5-7 days is an unfortunate response to a rather serious issue. Like to think that they'd be spending their time at least getting their talking points together on this issue. So it's part the party responsibility to ensure that they're screening their candidates, making sure that they have the right candidates running in the right ridings that are able to represent both the party and the constituents effectively. And of course, it's the responsibility of our newly elected MP to be able to respond to questions of her constituents and of the media related to whatever she posted during the course of the election.
I guess citizens will have to listen to the tone of that statement and decide what they think of it. But, you know, I mean, if the standard being set here is that mistakes like this must never be made, then let's hope that the 307 other MPs in Parliament haven't made errors like this, because they'll all be held to the same account. And I hope you speak to them in the same tone, including your own MPs.
Amanda, I want to get to an issue here in terms of picking apart the results of the election. You know, a lot of people had a lot of discussion before the election and after about vote splitting. But when we're actually looking at the statistics right now, it looks like resoundingly that outside of Quebec, the Tories got a major vote of confidence from Canadians, that vote splitting wasn't what did your party in. I mean, in terms of you're the Liberal Party right now, are you looking at that afresh and saying, okay, wait a minute here, we can't blame the NDP for this?
Yeah, you know, I think that there's a few points of view on this. The first one is It's a relatively superficial analysis to consider today that it had nothing to do with vote splitting based on the final election result. To really look at the numbers, you have to track them over the course of the campaign. 3 weeks in, we were virtually neck and neck with the Conservatives in Ontario. If those numbers had held, then we would have prevented the majority. But the NDP surge did spill over into Ontario to a certain degree, and we saw some seats open up to the Conservatives. We saw some backlash move to the NDP, and certainly we saw some chewing on both sides of the coin. That being said, though, I think serious Liberals would disagree that this came down to simply vote splitting. There were a number of factors. I think that there's been quite an openness and transparency to the fact that there have been a number of factors that led to these seriously disappointing results in the last election.
Jeff, you were shaking, you were nodding your head here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, you have to look at it at different times. I was looking over some old clippings this afternoon from a couple of weeks ago, around the 20th of April, and reading a very learned analysis in the Globe and Mail saying that the NDP surge in Quebec is great news for the Conservatives. Well, not so much. When they surged so much, they beat us. So, you know, there's a lot of conventional wisdom, I think, around about vote splits. And I think a lot of it got shattered in this election. Brian and Ken Bosanquist have written a very interesting piece suggesting actually it wasn't so much about the vote splits. It was about both the NDP and the Conservatives winning substantially, like winning with 48 to 52%. One other small point, though, I think it's important to note that I think a significant amount of the Conservative ultimate result in Ontario came about as a result of what I would call blue Liberals, Liberals who came to the Conservatives in order to take away the possibility ultimately of an NDP government.
Okay. And Brian, you having looked at these numbers, I mean, what do you think? He's saying that they want to take away the possibility of the NDP government, but you got a huge vote of confidence in a lot of different ridings, not just in Quebec.
Well, Jeff has nicely summarized the article that Ken and I wrote in the Globe and Mail yesterday on this topic. I thank you for it. You know, so I mean, New Democrats and Conservatives basically won the ridings with pretty close to 50% of the vote, and so this, you know, vote splitting benefited the Liberals on the numbers. But to this question about blue Liberals and so forth, I guess it's just the first taste of a new dynamic in federal politics, and that is that in the race for who's going to be government in the next 4 years, that in many ways what New Democrats need to think about is how to convince Conservative voters to vote for the NDP. And in that sense, voting patterns that we're very used to here in Western Canada, you know, the fight between the New Democrats and whatever the Conservatives are calling themselves in BC this decade, is between the two parties, back and forth on who will form the government. And that's what we now see federally, including in Ontario. The Democrats are going to have to figure out how to pick the lock of the Conservative vote, having done that job with the Bloc and with the Liberals.
Okay, I'm going to have to leave it there for now. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.